so fast that even the startups have a hard time catching up with their own space. It's just fascinating. So, oh, there's a phone left. It's the movie recommendation bot phone. So, I'm very excited that we, decided to spend a little more time on bots. We just had the question in the audience: where's the business model, right? How do they actually make money? How are they going to make money at some point? And we brought some of the best people together to talk about this. One of them, I can give as a spoiler alert, just pitched in front of will.i.am, Mark Cuban, and Chris Sacca, like a live Shark Tank, and won, because he actually made money from day one with his bot. And the other ones are people in this space who are right now exploring how is there to make money, where is the business in bots. I just got a message from Matt. He got stuck on a train. He had to walk back to his office, so he's not going to make it. But I would love to welcome on stage Amanda Giddon from Fatherly, very exciting content platform for young dads and young parents. Hi, Amanda. Vivian Rosenthal, the founder of Snaps, a very interesting marketing company that is right now building their own bots. Hi, Vivian. Matt Hartman from Betaworks Ventures is here. Hey, Matt. Just held a bot camp at Betaworks. You guys might have heard about it. And Misha from Claire, who was just talking about, hey, there he is. How's will.i.am? Do you have his number now, or? His email? Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll just pass you mine. And then we have Aditya from Troops, a AI startup. Hi, Aditya. And Francis from there. Oh, sorry. There you are. And you're going to get the microphone.
Sorry, we don't have enough, but that's right, you guys want one on your side? Make sure you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for having us. This is a cool space. Happy to be here. I'm with Comcast Ventures. And if you haven't heard of us before, we are a fund that's separate from Comcast. And they serve as our LP, but we definitely try to kind of leverage the Comcast family, including Comcast, NBC, Universal, DreamWorks. And are also very early investors in bots. So Poncho is one of our early investments, and on the AI and ML side, it includes like interactions and Enigma. And then I personally have a background in ML, so I've been spending a lot of time with companies in the space. And I'm a principal at Comcast Ventures. I joined recently. So want to make sure you guys have a chance to introduce yourselves and your companies. So if you guys can just quickly go around, I think for people who don't know you, it would be great.
Hi, my name is Aditya. I run product at Troops. A bit of background about Troops: we are a messaging interface that sits between platforms like Slack and Salesforce, your sales tools. The idea is, in the consumer world, we talk about sending people to Mars. We have self-driving cars, top headlines every single day. But our enterprise tools still look like they came out in 1995. And we're looking to change that by making sure a lot of the workflows that we use in our tools today are available to you in real time and context in tools like Slack. A bit about Troops: we are a bot-first company. We started about a year and a half ago. We've raised roughly $10 million to date from investors like First Round Capital, Felicis, Aspect Ventures, and Slack. And we're based here in New York.
Hey everyone, I'm Misha. I'm a founder at Claire, which is a chatbot for testing consumer products. So we work with retailers like Target, Kohl's, fashion brands like Rebecca Minkoff, Rent the Runway, and CPG companies, and help them optimize their products over chat. And you can think about it as a scalable focus group over chat. So instead of having 10 people in a room, you have thousands, hundreds of thousands over chat. And what our vision is for the company is to really power the product development cycle for all enterprises that make physical products. So we're starting with just the initial part of kind of what products should they make, but we're developing a recommendation engine through kind of understanding product affinity from customers. And so ultimately we want to return that to the customer and through the same chat that we're kind of asking them questions about what products they like, start suggesting them products that are relevant to them.
Hi everyone, I'm Vivian Rosenthal, founder of Snaps. We're a B2B2C SaaS platform connecting brands to consumers in mobile messaging. So we have over 100 Fortune 500 brands on the platform and working with them across the messaging landscape. So really platform agnostic and have a pretty robust CMS that allows them to get the data and analytics in the messaging space, which has been really, a pain point for them. And obviously bots are one of the things that we offer our clients as part of the messaging ecosystem.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda and I lead product and audience development at Fatherly. And Fatherly is the digital lifestyle guide for men entering parenthood. We create original content to guide fathers through the most blindly acquisitive and inquisitive time in their lives. And over the past year and a half since launch, I've managed the build of 2 bots, the Fatherly Dad Joke Bot and the Fatherly Gear Bot.
Hi, I'm Matt Hartman from Betaworks. We do 2 things at Betaworks. We build companies from the ground up, so we write the first line of code and build those companies. We do a few of those every year. And then we also make seed stage investments in outside companies. And across both, we invest in broadly kind of consumer social media products. And one of the big areas that we've focused on over the last, starting about 2 years ago, was the chatbot kind of ecosystem. And so we made some investments around that. We built some things around that. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Great, thanks guys. So kind of as a first point, I think this is a panel about making money off of bots, but in order to make money, you have to kind of find your early adopters and users, customers, and for some of you guys who are B2B. So really just kind of want to understand what your go-to-market strategy was, what you were doing early on to kind of get those people on your platform, and kind of what distribution channels you were looking to start.
Yeah, so I guess I can start this one. So what we were looking at is what enterprises were already using to kind of solve the problem we're solving for them, and what budgets they were using for it. So, for example, what enterprises are using to get customer feedback are focus groups and surveys. And surveys are a very inefficient way of actually collecting consumer response because they're not personalized, they're not a conversation, they're just a form that you fill in. And so they're vastly inaccurate. So the way we figured out how much they pay for surveys, and we actually charge a lot more than that because we end up getting much more accurate responses through the conversations.
At Snaps, we were really targeting brands that were early adopters of social and assuming that they would then be early adopters of messaging, which proved to be the case. But it seemed like they didn't have access to the tools in messaging. So we did a lot of thought leadership in the space and a lot of education around what messaging was, and just there's still a lot of brands and agencies who don't truly understand the messaging space. So for us, it was doing a lot of educating and listening to what they were trying to solve for and like who they were trying to reach and what their KPIs were, and then sort of building a list of products that would solve what they were trying to achieve at scale.
And on the B2C side, maybe Matt, you can also talk to kind of some of the companies within Betaworks who had a B2C strategy. How are they acquiring users? Were they going through Facebook or Slack, and sort of some of those methods?
Yeah, so I think it's right now really difficult. So there's a few different companies that we've worked with. A company called Howdy, which is B2B, built in the Slack ecosystem, but marketing directly to their customers. Poncho, which you mentioned earlier. Poncho started out, and I think they started out and had a text message bot and then an email newsletter. So they could use some of the same kind of email newsletter strategies that more traditional companies would use, kind of cross promotion. It's difficult right now because if you look at the different platforms, you have Facebook, which basically they'll feature a bot, but that's kind of it. You can't really, there's no discovery mechanism. There's barely kind of a bot store. Slack has a place where you can go and see what the most popular bots are, and also a bunch of social mechanisms to be able to discover. So you have, and then if you look at Kick Messenger on the consumer side, they do a pretty good job of letting you bring in conversations, bring in a bot into a conversation where the person you're talking to doesn't know about it. So that's a way that they can discover the bot. So all of these sort of social growth strategies are what we think about, but it's super early, and you kind of have to pick and choose based on which platform you're in.
Yeah, and the Fatherly side of things, our revenue model is 99% based off of branded content. So when we launched our first bot, the Dad Joke bot, in advance of Father's Day, and taking advantage of the Super Bowl, our Super Bowl, we kind of treated the launch as an internal branded content campaign, capitalizing on email inventory. Most of our audience, we have upwards of 1 million fans on Facebook, so promoting in the channel that people would ultimately be consuming and speaking to our Dad Joke bot on. And then we also benefited from significant earned media around the marquee holiday, and then also because we were one of the first in the parenting space, saturated with 2 million mom blogs, many big legacy brands to really venture into the bot space.
Yeah, at Troops, we were solving the traditional startup story of solving a problem that we faced personally. Just to get a rough show of hands, how many people here use Salesforce or have used Salesforce? Okay. So a large part of the audience. How many people here love using Salesforce every single day, every minute? One person. All right. So this was something that we realized too. Some of our co-founders previously spent time at Buddy Media, which was acquired by Salesforce. Others of us have been sellers in the past, and we realized that there was a breakdown between. So Salesforce does provide a lot of value, and we're all very well aware of that. And the value it provides is it's the skeleton, it's the backbone infrastructure behind sales teams and enterprises. Getting data into there is a really big problem, and pulling data out and actually interacting with that data is a really, really large issue for most companies. And so we saw this problem firsthand as when we were selling, and that was kind of the genesis of starting Troops. And as we grew and as we went out and started launching our alpha and our beta products, we quickly realized that there are a lot of people out there that face very similar problems, and they were willing to spend their social capital and their time up front to work with us to build our product and make sure we got the experience correct.
Great, thanks. Another question around sort of go-to-market, and one I'm always fascinated by is, to what extent did you guys believe sort of technical differentiation was a really important factor for you guys early on? And how much time and effort did you want to put towards building out your own internal algorithms and ML AI components versus taking kind of open source APIs off the internet? They're largely available. And did you kind of think that was something that you wanted, a strategy early, and maybe it's changed over time? Love to hear about that value to you.
Sure, I'll start. I think for us, it's really, we look at this triumvirate of like technology, strategy, and sort of creative content. So what the value that we're trying to provide our clients who are brands is not necessarily to have the most cutting edge technology, but to be able to deliver content in a personalized and meaningful way, right? That works for them, across their consumer base. And so, I think while it's easy to get pulled into like wanting to have like the latest and greatest feature and like every cool new piece of tech, I think we really try to think about like what's going to move the needle for our clients and how can it like truly add value towards either like brand engagement or driving revenue for them or some real world metric.
So we ended up actually investing, I guess, a lot of our time into technology, and so to clarify, even though we're here speaking as a bot company, we're actually a data science company. So we use the bot as an interface to gather data from users because we do think it's where users will be spending a lot of time shopping and looking for products. But ultimately, our value proposition to our customers, the retailers that we work with, is that we can very accurately predict which products their users are going to like. And in order to do that, surveys don't do that. They just kind of count votes. But oftentimes, the things that people say they like, they don't actually buy them. So you need to write data models that learn consumer behavior. And I think there's going to be this new type of network effect with bot and, in general, companies that use any kind of AI to drive their value proposition. It's going to be a data network effect that the more data goes in, the more accurate your models become. So it was really important for us to set that up early in order to start building basically a moat for our company.
I mean, one of the things that we see from the investor side is that there's this tendency to want to build your own stuff because it's in theory creates a moat. Not that yours doesn't, but that sometimes it's not like 10x more. It's not a 10x better experience for the customer to build your own and takes twice as long versus using open source software. So I think the key is identifying the problems where the existing open source algorithms don't work, right? And then saying, okay, in those cases, we're going to build our own. But in the cases when you have, when there's something that's off the shelf, I mean, to some degree, like if you're hard coding responses and it works, then like that's great, right? You don't even need any AI. Users have to ultimately like be able to perceive the difference, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on that, one of the things we always look at is, early on we asked ourselves, what are we optimizing for? And as a business, we're optimizing for users taking action through our product. So what technology you choose, what data model you build, that doesn't directly answer that question in our opinion, right? So those are all tools, and if you need to use those to build your product and to build a great experience, like definitely do so. But for a lot of what we've done very early on, we found that off-the-shelf tools have helped us. And in many cases, it's been really simple. It's been no data science. It's been no algorithms. It's been very simple decision trees, if-then statements that 90% of the time do solve some of these core problems that users are facing.
And when we ventured into the bot space, we were envisioning it as somewhat of a test and learn, given that the bots are an extension of our product and not core to our product. So we worked with the team at Teckst, who spoke earlier, to build our first bot and completely understand the need to solve real pressing day-to-day problems. But I also found that there's something to be said for the pure entertainment value in the bot space. The dad joke bot is quite literally dad jokes at your fingertips on Slack, Facebook, and via SMS. And we did do this big marketing push around Father's Day, but found that there's real evergreen value in that, and it's permeated into our social strategy and also our newsletter communications. So we do have aspirations for bigger and more complex bots, but in terms of venturing into that space, we really benefited from using those open source tools.
So kind of on that point, how do you see, at least from those of you who are focused on B2C, how do you see that bot strategy of kind of being tangential as adding value? Do you plan to kind of basically create a critical mass, and then is it going to be a marketing distribution type of monetization strategy for marketing companies? Or you can have content distributed via a bot that has a lot of users online with you. What do you think the value is there? Are you planning to monetize that piece of the business?
The value to our users?
Yeah, the bot piece specifically.
So we want to be where our users are, and especially parents are interested in this consolidated experience. You don't have time to open your 10 apps and check your Instagram and your Snapchat and Facebook. So we did want to provide an easy experience where you can already communicate in your environment. And then also, we're using it as a brand extension tool. We have a really strong editorial voice that we're really proud of, and use that to permeate across all these different channels. And then I can speak more to this later, but we did just sell our first sponsored bot. So that allows brands to speak to our consumers and add specific value to them through this bot environment, moving away from the dad joke bot and towards more complex communications and a product curation bot. So we're excited to, extend the fatherly voice and curation there.
Remind me the exact question.
How are you using? How do you think that B2C bots, which have users and sort of more of a social type strategy, how do you see those companies trying to monetize, if at all, at this point? Maybe what they might do in the future to monetize their users.
Okay, now I remember what I was going to say. I mean, I think that your comment is really telling, right? Fatherly has a very specific understanding of what its business model is, right? And so you can start to slot in what the different potentials are for that type of thing. And Shine talked, I think, on the last panel a little bit about what their monetization strategy, and it almost reminds me of, if you think back to kind of social before people figured out you could do sponsored posts. It was like, should we just do advertisements here? Should we, what is unique or native to this medium. And as soon as it took a while to show the brands, in their case, in social networks cases, what made sense and what would feel comfortable to the users. And I think the same thing's happening right now in chatbots, where people right now are just figuring out how users are using these things. And in the fatherly bot, they have their monetization engine, and so they can apply that to that particular category, but then learn how people are using it. I think in the Shine bot, you have a totally different you have a different set of options where people might be willing to pay to have access to premium features. I think then you have on the B2B side, you have a bunch of different models also. So we're seeing, I think that on the consumer side, you basically have the choices of someone is paying to reach the eyeballs that you own, or the people who you're reaching are willing to pay for some version of the service you're offering. And you kind of have all these different iterations on that, but the best ones, both in from the web to social to mobile to now to bots, are going to be monetization strategies that feel very natural and native to the experience that you're providing.
And on the B2B side, sort of what's your sales pitch? How do you think about messaging to the enterprises and companies you're selling to, particularly early on? And sort of, for you, for example, it's kind of the sales teams, is it increasing efficiency? How do you convince people that there's ROI to be had from using this bot and spending with you guys? And for you, it's obviously retailers and so on.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So efficiency is definitely one of the big parts of the sale. One of the things we do when we walk in initially is we talk about, look, there's a lot of administrative work that you don't want to do, and that's really, really boring and annoying. What if someone else was helping you manage that and taking care of a lot of the more boring actions that you have to take? So for example, you have to log into Salesforce, find an opportunity, update a specific field for that opportunity, and press save, and then make sure that actually propagates down the chain. What if something else could actually run that workflow for you, and the only part of that workflow that you were involved with was the initial, yes, I want to do this, or no, let me do it tomorrow. So when we present these use cases, we really present them with the idea of efficiency, productivity. But for sellers, the most important thing is always, can I sell more, right? And so we present these as, look, if you don't spend your time doing administrative work, you're more likely to sell more, and especially in the SaaS sales space, that means a lot. When you get another hour, 2 hours of time every day back, that could mean another 10, 15% increase in your personal sales.
Yeah, so our sales pitch, and we usually sell top down, so we kind of tried both ways, and it turns out that kind of going straight for the C-suite or kind of VPs of product development, something like that, and having them buy into our vision and what we want to do for them, and then having that trickle down works best. And I'll throw out a number that, in retail, over 60% of new products that are released into market fail. And so what that means is that the people whose jobs it is to pick which products to put into market, buyers, merchandisers, get it right about 30% of the time, which is a pretty low number. There's huge losses for them. And we come in and we say, we can do it, we can increase your prediction accuracy to from 60 to 90%. We run a pilot on current sales data where they don't tell us how it's performing, and we just show them how our predictions are in that ballpark range, which is 2 to 3 times higher than what they currently do, which ends up kind of being a pretty straightforward sale.
Usually we're reflecting back to the brands what they already know and what they have anxiety around, which is that their standalone apps aren't performing well. There's a lot of drop off. They understand that people are moving into different messaging channels, and they just want to be able to reach consumers there, and they don't know how, right? So it's actually a pretty straightforward sell. There's actually usually anxiety on the side of the brand to get into messaging. So they usually adopt it pretty quickly.
To add one more comment there, and this is very unique to Slack. So as many people know, Slack was a bottoms-up introduction to a lot of organizations. Managers saw that their entire team was on Slack, and they said, wait a minute, I want to have access to that data. Slack turned around and said, well, if you want access, you have to pay for it. We're finding that to be a very interesting model, and this is very new. You mentioned top-down as a sales model, and that's where we are today too. We're doing a lot of top-down sales, but we do find that a lot of sellers tend to just go to our website and sign up, and what that creates is This creates this kind of disconnect where sellers are using a tool that provides more granularity into their sales process because they're taking actions at a more frequent pace than they would in Salesforce. And that granularity is not exposed to their managers and their C-suite leadership. So they turn around and they say, wait a minute, I need access to that data. I want to know what's happening. So the bottoms-up effect is very much alive, especially in platforms like Slack.
Great. And how do you think about getting in the door and pricing early now versus maybe how it'll look down the road? Are you issuing pilots early? And are you seeing your pricing strategy change drastically from launch till currently?
Yeah, so pricing is still it's kind of an open question, especially when you're selling bot technologies. We came in with just pricing high. So because we anchor ourselves on, this accuracy metric. And so we end up usually pricing, we do a pilot that will price, it's like an enterprise software type of, 1 month contract. And with the expectation that if we work together longer term, they'll just renew it for the year. So we can kind of turn them into an annual subscriber.
Is it based on kind of number of seats with you guys, or you have kind of a platform play and you unlimited number of people within the retailer can log on and use your bot?
Yeah, so it's based on the number of products that are being tested, because that's kind of directly correlates with the value that we're adding. So, and usually you need some kind of statistically significant number of people reviewing those products, but it's really product based.
Can I ask you a question about that? How different is that than non-bot business models on the B2B side? These things sound like they're knowable and kind of, are they consistent?
It's so it's the same as kind of a non-bot SaaS. The difficulty is that we actually see tremendously higher engagements over bot than anything else they do. So it's 10 times higher completion rates than a typical survey. And the difficulty is quantifying the value added there. So that's why we kind of anchor on the product, but I think we really need to understand how to convey the engagement over bot as kind of something that you charge for.
Actually, that's a really good question there around non-bot versus bots. I think early on, and at least from what we're seeing, it's a lot of traditional like SaaS sales models. So you're paying per user, per seat, per month, or a yearly cycle. Where it gets really interesting, in my opinion, is when we move towards when these bots get more powerful. Because one way to look at a bot is, in theory, a bot could be a browser, right? It's just an interface to a variety of different use cases. So I'll take sales as an example. Traditionally, a sales tool, let's say like Outreach, was a top of funnel sales tool. And a sales tool like that would sell for X number of dollars per month. Now, what happens when a bot provides 3 or 4 or 5 different tools worth of use cases, and each year a new tool use case is added to the bot? So now that same model doesn't work anymore, right? Now you have to start charging based on what the user is doing and what kind of use case value they're getting from the bot. I don't think we're there yet, but I think that's going to be a very real problem that we face in the next 2-3 years.
What do you mean? Sorry.
No, actually, I was going to ask you on your B2B companies, what you've seen there within Betaworks.
Yeah, I think the part of the reason I'm asking is because to me it doesn't look that different from like we talked about pricing before, right? And sometimes you start things out for free just to see if people are even willing to try them out, and then sometimes you have this strategy of kind of, do I charge a whole lot and then kind of come down and to figure out where the price point should be? Do I charge a really low amount to see who's even willing to pay anything at all? But it doesn't fundamentally strike me as being that different from building a website and having A, B, C, D testing prices. And what you're talking about, I think, is to me sounds like one of the things that changed from shipping software to SaaS, where you ship software, it was like, here's the final product, it's $150, and if you want to buy the new version of it, next year when it comes out, you have to spend another $150. And the big difference with SaaS was that because you can deploy all these new features, it's constantly getting better, it's worth continuing to pay over time. It also happens to have the competitive advantage of being lower priced to come in to test it out. So what we're seeing mostly is that second model where people are, there's either a freemium model or like a SaaS model where you're just paying at the beginning.
And sort of to that point also, where do you see your pricing leverage within your platform? This can go for both B2B and B2C companies. Is it around sort of the feature set you offer, the data that you're collecting? What are people really paying for? And sort of where does that value lie that will allow you to have pricing leverage over time?
Yeah.
Got it. So it's an interesting time to be trying to charge for something that's still largely an unknown. And the way that Fatherly is able to innovate as a small and very verticalized team is bringing on brand partners that are willing to share in those costs and also those gains that are associated with the bot space. So right now we're not charging on like a cost per message or a cost per engagement because we're not quite there yet. But what we are able to charge for are those like the more traditional entry points on social, on a cost per click, display media on site. So brands are comfortable with that pricing structure, and I guess you could think about production as some sort of an added value that allows Fatherly to move our product forward and also allow the brand to benefit from the earned media, the brand extension, and speaking to the users in this innovative way.
Yeah, we, our model is really a year-long technology license that's paid up front, and I think for us, it's something we think about often is like, what is the value outside the technology? And we've come to see it really as strategy when we work with these brands, because often they haven't internally put together a team that's dealing with their messaging strategy, or even more specifically their bot strategy. So we've found that we've had to actually sort of build out that side of our team and really provide that infrastructure and that thinking for these brands in order for them to have success.
I'm curious, Misha, for you are coming in at a high price point today. Do you have any concerns around competition coming in and sort of competing your pricing advantage today, what you're charging? Could that be competed away over time? Or do you think you kind of can build it up as you grow?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this space is that it's actually very crowded, not from the bot side, but from the legacy vendors, running surveys to predict product. And so what we've had to do with every single enterprise company that we've worked with so far is that we come in and they're thinking of like 5 other vendors, and we do a bake-off. And we just end up outperforming them because nobody, at the moment, people are just kind of counting votes over surveys. So as soon as you run any kind of more sophisticated data model on those user responses to kind of filter out lower quality ones, you end up doing better. And in this, so we kind of set the benchmark for that, but I think what is going to keep us protected over time, because it's going to continue being crowded, is the accuracy just getting higher because you have more data coming into this platform.
I think for us it's straightforward only because we're not doing a ton on the data side very early on. Just again because in the sales world you want to move quickly and you want to take action and you want to sell more. So early on it's been very straightforward. The leverage is around our pricing has been around saving time and productivity. But over time I think it probably will evolve to understanding sales team dynamics, understanding best practices, and actually potentially even training employees to be better sellers.
One of the interesting things about what Vivian said was that it almost sounds like there's 2 separate services. It's like we're going to have the bot hosting, creation platform, but also like how should I even begin to think about this as a brand? And so it almost to me sounds a little bit like the Palantir model of we're going to come in, we're going to consult you on how you can use your data, and then we're going to leave behind this SaaS product which we've created, and then you'll be able to pay for that over time. And there does seem like there's an opportunity in this category to do something like that because everyone's trying to figure it out. Most of the people here are on the forefront of like having seen what actually works, and that's a huge advantage. You can almost have that 2 separate lines of business.
Right, and each of you are also very focused on a specific vertical. Do you see yourself expanding outside of the current vertical that you focus on? And Palantir is a good example. They are, very much in the consulting strategy, willing to work with a lot of different types of companies, and it's hard to do that initially. So, how do you think about which new markets to go into, if at all?
Yeah, so I think that currently, like what we're doing is helping enterprises make better product, kind of just make better products before they even launch them into market. And the next step in that is using the same recommendation engine to personalize products for consumers. And so that's kind of how we see ourselves closing the loop there, because ultimately consumers are going on this chat and reviewing products, and they need to be rewarded somehow too. So we want to close that loop, but by providing recommendations for the consumers, but currently just focusing on the B2B side.
But are you focused on a specific vertical within B2B? So say, is it retail or specific types of products that you want consumers to rate and answer survey questions about?
Yeah, so we started off with apparel because there are tons of new apparel products released each year, and it's something that's very aesthetic driven often, and so consumers can react to. We've since branched into home, so furniture, rugs, like dish towels, things like that. And are starting to work with CPG companies too, so which is more about kind of the branding of the snack bar you're releasing. Yeah.
I mean, we work across all verticals. It's really, we haven't found that there's just one vertical that works. It seems like any consumer-facing company is going to need to be in the messaging space, right? Otherwise, they're going to be light years behind their competitor. And obviously, it usually is like the entertainment brands tend to go there first and experiment, and then often they lead the way for CPG and QSR and retail and automotive. So we've seen that same unfolding that we saw in social.
Yeah, I think for us, we're in the sales space, and obviously that's a very defined vertical. But even within that, I'll say the sales space it's really multiple verticals put together, because it often includes marketing technology, sales technology, and a variety of other stuff. And this is a $100 billion industry, right? So within that space, we even further segment it, and we're starting off with a very thin slice of looking at very specific personas of SDRs, account executives, account managers. There are a ton of different personas, and as we begin to develop an addictive experience for those personas, we'll begin to expand more to the other roles and personas within the sales space. Now beyond that, I think there's a day where we can potentially move into a healthcare education technology, because the core of what we're building around looking at various data sets, ingesting that data, and then helping push along workflows, that applies to, I think, almost every vertical in the B2B space.
Do you think your pricing changes over time as you expand your strategy? And if this can be for anyone, and maybe this is a good question for you as well, because you've seen a lot of companies in the bot space in particular that have grown and been successful. Has their pricing strategy changed? And are there some that you think have worked really well and ones that have not worked so well over time?
Very few of our companies have focused on pricing, so we haven't seen that. We have a couple of companies are on the B2B side that are experimenting now with pricing, and so it has changed. Mostly it's changed from being free to trying to charge something or A/B testing. But the thing that has been interesting is that I think that there are the two areas where we've seen willingness to pay are companies who are getting an actual service, whether it's something like a dashboard that pulls in a bunch of data from all of their places, and then the other category, as I think a number of people talked about here, are the brand side.
So I think that pricing is definitely going to change as we push into new verticals. So, for example, we do almost per product pricing that is bucketed. So when you're going with apparel, where a brand may be releasing hundreds of products, it's much different than a CPG brand that is releasing maybe one product. And so the challenge there is to understand what per product testing means for someone who doesn't release that many products. So you can think of other companies like Tesla or Apple that also don't release that many products but would probably want to test them. And that becomes a much more complicated question than just you tested one dress, $500.
And then if you're not making revenue today and you're not tracking kind of revenue growth, the market's very early, what other metrics do you look to kind of be indicator of business success for you? And I guess it can be related to, your next raise, and so these are things you really want to track, or just your own internal metrics that are important?
Yeah, for us, it's actions taken. So for us, it's and this is a lot of this is upcoming features that we're beginning to experiment with. We're looking to see what kind of addictive behavior we can begin to see from our customers. So for a lot of people that we're testing with, we're starting to realize that they're changing their behavior entirely. They're now taking their primary point of action is becoming Slack in our case. And that's very interesting to us because we're very confident that if we have an addictive experience and you're using us as the primary interface to take your actions, monetization shouldn't be that hard at that point.
So we actually are monetizing right now. So there is a tangible ROI on investment in building and marketing these bots. What we do need to provide to brands is some qualification and quantification of brand lift, which right now can be number of messages sent, but is also involving like social listening, how many people are talking about the brand in the context of the bot space. Earned media is really important when wrap decks to clients, showing that they're getting pickup by other media outlets. And then also we do use a network of syndication partners to extend the reach of our products. So that's been really interesting to brands as well.
I mean, because most of the companies we're working with don't focus on revenue initially, it's actually not that different from an app or a website or anything else, where what we're trying to do is find the thing that is ultimately the best proxy for building a business. And so if it's a company, for example, that's going to fundamentally be ad driven and that you're not going to start driving ads until you have enough traffic, then you need to make sure that people who come today are here in a week, here in a month, here in a year. And so in that case, we look at retention metrics and growth metrics that are particularly organic, because if you aren't making money early on, then you have to make sure that you can grow in some way, which is why we're so focused on all these different points of discovery. Conversely, if it's a company that's ultimately trying to sell one product or be transactional, like a bot that helps you find a hotel, the more important thing is not necessarily that people are coming on every day, because that's not a behavior that happens every day, but that when they come on, they do find the thing that is most likely to convert them. And then finding the thing that's the highest proxy, the closest proxy for that before they actually start monetizing.
We're tracking against revenue, so.
And do you guys benchmark yourselves to other companies that kind of sit within your space and think about what they've done to monetize? Are there people in particular that have had really strong monetization strategies in or outside of this particular bot space that you are kind of modeling yourself after? And it's specific, to your own individual companies.
Sure, I can speak to that. One company you had mentioned, but Buddy Media sort of built up a platform in the social space, and that's something initially we looked at and talked to the founders of Buddy about, and how we could sort of think about building a Buddy Media for messaging. So I think we've tried to use as many sort of historic comps as possible. But obviously thinking about how we, continue to evolve the technology and making sure that, that becomes the most critical component.
In particular for your sales team on the B2B side, how are you modeling that team and that strategy? Because I think that's also a big point of differentiation, is sort of that process of getting your sales team benchmarked with the right metrics and the right motivation, I guess, and goals to set, whether it's timing, if you're doing it on a quarterly basis, or if you're targeting number of customers versus revenue, an MRR, ACV. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we try to set quarterly revenue benchmarks and have the sales team work collectively to hit those, and that has worked really well. We think about it less as what each person individually is going to do, although that's really critical, but really try to think of it as as they work as a team, because often there's so many different ways into a brand, different teams at the brand, or maybe it's through their agency, or even their media company who's like buying their media. So we found it to be like a very joint effort on the side of the sales team. And often, you know, we've actually found that a lot of the time our clients, if they're an agency, are working with us for one brand and then recommending us to another. So often we end up over-servicing clients. We'd rather over-service than under-service because it's really, for us, about building a relationship.
Yeah, so the way I guess our sales is mostly, it's sales and account management. So it's kind of what Matt was saying, that you have to go in and almost consult the company, the enterprise for a little bit. And it's all about kind of setting expectations because, you know, when you come in and say you're going to be 60, 90% accurate, it actually takes a long time to explain what that means and to understand where they fall in terms of like their current accuracy, because it's kind of sensitive information to a buyer. They don't want to feel like they're not doing a great job. So it's a lot of that sort of like hand-holding, account managing, and the sales goes top down. So what we end up measuring is how fast the enterprise converts to a pilot from kind of first conversation. So that's usually takes us a couple of months. And then during the pilot, kind of how fast do they convert to kind of a longer engagement. So usually if you set those expectations up front, that can happen in about a month as well.
So on our end, our sales team focuses on, and when I say sales, it really is customer success because we look for the deep integration between customer success and sales. We focus on a number of organizations, and the reason we do that is on a platform like Slack, when something's used in a public channel, chances are everyone else in the team is going to see that, and at least half or more are going to try it. So there tends to be this organic internal growth once you've gotten something installed in an organization. And so our sales team success metric is one, getting an org set up, and we call it org onboarded. And to us, the word onboarded means they have replicated some of their existing sales processes in Troops, and we are driving those processes through Slack. So now we're taking, you know, one example here is you might be getting a report every day from Salesforce into your email. What if that report came to you as a direct message or in a public channel in Slack? So if we can make sure that an entire team's list of reports is coming to them inside Slack, that's potentially a successful organization because now they've shifted over their entire process.
And Amanda and Matt, this is maybe a bit more focused towards you guys. How do you think about your breakdown between sales and marketing and sort of building out your feature set, investing in the technology early on? What does that ratio look like for you, and how does it change as you grow and become more mature as a company?
That's a good question that we're grappling with at the moment. Yeah, it's like my personal belief that we should build products that we want to build and then sell them instead of the other way around. And also in doing that, you know, you get some test and learn metrics that you can communicate to brands instead of starting completely from scratch and then, you know, having this kind of abyss ahead. So we also want to iterate on our existing product. It's not my goal to build 40 bots for brands or for Fatherly. So after this, you know, initial test and learn, first in the dad joke bot and then next in the gear bot, I have a vision for like everything you need to know about parenting AMA focused bot that works with partners who have a public mandate, you know, data-driven content to their audiences. So building something that's more robust and that can have brand takeovers and, you know, sponsorships within that larger ecosystem. So I'd safe to say that the marketing team is driving that innovation right now, and the sales team is really excited about it.
For us, I mean, as I said kind of at the outset, our focus is really on consumer social media, where the expectation is that we're building something that people are going to use, and then we'll figure out what the business model is later. So it's extremely important for us. Most of the companies that we invest in and build, the first person working on it is an engineer. And the reason is that the product is almost certainly going to change and needs to change as quickly as possible. So they come up with a rough idea, put it out there, and then iterate on it and trash it and put out another idea. And so for us, the key things that we're doing are more on the initially user acquisition, so it's kind of on the marketing side, but really on the viral growth marketing side. What are the things they do? Pancho is an example we keep talking about, is constantly thinking about what are the things that it can share with you that you'll then want to share with other people to start to get at growth. Because I think for their longer term business model, what they really need is a lot of people to be using it. And I think another company that is on my mind now because of the election, because of the debate last night, was Purple, which I've been a fan of for a while. They do a really good job sending you these cards that are shareable, and I think they spend a lot of time figuring out, kind of measuring retention, figuring out what the engagement is, and then seeing what that viral growth can look like. And very little on, I don't know about what they do, but for us at least, it's very little on sales early.
And I just want to, we have 5 minutes left. I want to open up to the audience. If you guys have any questions you'd like to ask the panel, we can start going through some of those. Anybody? Yes.
For those of you with robust sales department, do you have any sort of structure with commission-based model? And if so, is that company-wide? Is that per department? So the question was, for those of you with more robust sales departments, do you have any sort of commission-based structure where you would incentivize employees? And if so, is that company-wide? Is that per department? Is that for individuals?
I can answer. Yes, we do have a commission structure, and it's just applies to the sales team. It's not outside of that.
Anyone else?
Is there any example of successful monetization strategy for bots? Your bots, maybe anything else, you know? Because like we're supposed to talk about how to make money with that, but we didn't cover that much. Maybe you know like who is doing it really great and can give us this example. Thank you.
I mean, we're definitely making money from bots. I mean, we
You're not making money from bots. You're making money
from selling the technology of bot. That's true, right? It's an indirect sale, but I mean, we are making money from bots, right? Like that's the technology that we're selling. So you could argue that we are, right, directly or indirectly.
You're talking about sort of on a pure consumer, like I'm a bot first company and I have some kind of business model. I think this looks a lot like websites, right? At first it was like, okay, we all think we need websites, we don't really know why. And then people start coming to them and Google starts indexing in them, and then it starts to be a lot of people coming to them, and then there's a bunch of different business models that emerge. So I think some of them that we talked about were charging, we were talking about charging consumers for some of them, right? So I think on the panel earlier, Shine was talking about what their business model looks like. I think something, I thought the one that you were talking about was really interesting, the not the joke bot, but the one that you're thinking about, where you're charging brands to get access to people. I mean, it really looks like it's sort of an advertising model, or maybe even like a sponsored content model where you do a brand takeover, where the value to the consumers that they get to ask the question, the value to the brands they get to be in front of the consumer. It's really an advertising model, I think. So I think it does depend on the actual product, but just like any service, I think there's ways that people are testing them now.
Yeah, I was going to jump in there too. So just to be clear, we have in the past charged people, and we have experimented with multiple different pricing structures, and we actively chose not to pursue that because that changes the focus of us as a business, right? Because if you look at Slack is a good example here. The Slack App Store, or the Slack, whatever they call it, it's been out for, 10 months now? They launched it last December. Everything's really new. The experiences are really new. The product space is really new. So to shift our focus away from building out a addictive experience short term may or may not be the right strategy, but we chose not to do that right now, knowing that, especially in our space, in the sales technology space, making money is a known quantity.
And as you mentioned, we have a sponsored content model, something that's a little bit more tangential because it's an app and not a platform-specific chatbot, is the Courts app. So they have digestible news that you interact with via buttons. And I was scrolling through it this morning, and they have banner ads running in that experience right now. And to your point about bots acting as websites. I'm interested to see how platforms like Facebook open up to allow that kind of brand integration, kind of support publishers and brands as they look to grew revenue through that channel. And they have recently opened up the platform a bit to allowing sponsorship, but they do a very complex ad system, so I'm interested to see where that goes.
Do any of you guys expect to always stay kind of a pure bot play? Do you think you'll add other components to your platform that maybe you leverage the AI that you're using through this messaging chatbot platform? And so you're kind of expanding and leveraging the technical piece, I guess, across the platform.
So I think for us at least, because we are a data science company, at some point, as people are coming through and reviewing products, we are tagging all the products with attributes, and so basically the machine learning algorithm starts just learning what attributes people are gravitating towards. So I think at some point the company is probably going to not completely detach from the bot, but it won't need constant data dumps through the bot interface in order to help other companies make decisions. Like you don't need 5 red dresses from 5 different retailers to be reviewed to give them all the answers, but whether they should make it or not.
The way I see it is kind of bots is the distribution mechanism through which you are distributing the AI brain or machine that you built that is performing a specific function, and so it can be used in different ways, which is kind of interesting.
Hi, just a quick question. I think it's always interesting to see, and as we talked about, bots is pretty new overall. So a lot of you guys have seen some really awesome success and are relatively in the longevity of this space, probably going to be considered first movers, which is really cool. How do you see the sort of divergence or intersection of differentiation and defensibility of bot technology being more about the data and the actual technology versus more about the strategy? So 15 years ago, someone building a website for just the technology that they were building, regardless of what was on it, could get paid a ton more money than today, because websites have become so commoditized that it's more about what's on the site than the actual technology behind it. How do you think, with your own companies or in general, over the next 10 years, the bot space will evolve with the commoditization, again, of things like NLPs and other underlying technology? Do you see the success of, and the truly successful companies, and hopefully all of your companies, really differentiating and building defensibility on the strategy and the idea, and the technology just sort of being the engine behind it, or the actual technology or the data that you have on a more technical side being how you differentiate and defend your product against bigger competitors or people with more money and resources, et cetera?
Yeah, so a quick thought about that, it's an awesome question, is that when we were thinking about defensibility of our company, we kind of figured that there are 2 ways we can defend ourselves. We're not, I'm a physicist by background, I know nothing about branding. So it was really network effect or embedding, like an embedded SaaS product in a B2B model. And what I was talking about earlier is that I think, and it's not necessarily just bots, it's just as people start using more artificial intelligence type technologies, that there's the potential for a data network effect. So that's kind of one way of viewing our defensibility. The other one is, in order for us to constantly be getting that data, we hook up at checkout in order to see how those products actually did, which ends up becoming more of an embedded SaaS product. So I think those are 2 ways in which we think about defensibility.
For us, it's really our clients, right? And right now we have 100 brands on the platform, and if we look to the next year to have 200 plans, that's the moat that we're building.
Sounds like a combination of both strategy and technical. I think that's it, but thank you guys so much for coming, and for you guys for being here.
Thank you, guys. Wonderful. Thanks for